Sometimes when you're driving down the road all by yourself, you begin to hear a voice that tells you need to look around, pay attention. Maybe something isn't quite right. That voice is me. It's the voice of Gord. Hey everybody, we're back. Voice of Gord yet again. I had a whole lineup of podcasts I recorded many months ago that I finally got around to editing and getting out the door. Once again, usual apologies, delays, book, family, all the stuff. Thanks for sticking with me. I just got out here a few days ago. My discussion with Jeremy Citron from the Long Haul Law Group. And this next one here is pretty good. It's my friends from a little organization, some of us on FreightX and the online trucking discussion community called the TNOOA guys, which is a sort of fun way of their acronym TNOOA, the National Owner Operators Association. These guys are looking out for owner ops and drivers. Two of the representatives, Texas trucker Jayme Anderson, you'll know him from Twitter, and an anon named Blake, joined me to talk about issues in trucking and what TNOOA is up to, especially with broker transparency. Some people have discussed this issue mostly one-sided. The TNOOA guys represent the pro-transparency side, and they explain why and how it's not just a simple matter of figuring out what the price of things are. It's much more expansive, and I was glad to hear their side of the story. And they also describe how they help regular company drivers, because there's lots of abusive employers and shady operations out there. And knowing how to protect yourself and what assistance is available to you in a situation you're not sure about sure is a great service that the TNOO guys provide for any drivers out there. I was happy to speak with them. I'm going to be letting this loose here early in the week after this horrific accident in Florida. I have much more to say about that in the coming days. I'm organizing an emergency roundtable podcast, actually, with a few former guests of the show, including Shannon from American Truckers United, Danielle Schaffen, Justin Super Trucker Martin, and Dale Prax from Freight Validate. It's going to be like an open letter to all the authorities and everybody in the trucking industry about what's going on here in this incident in Florida, which sort of encapsulates so many problems. I'm looking forward to getting that out to you here right after this one. And then I got 2 or 3 more in the holster, and I have to finish writing the book. I got 2 more chapters to go. I'm almost done. Anyway, thanks for listening. Reach out to the TNOOA guys. Links to their website and their Twitter handles will be in the show notes. If you want to complain at me or them about something and tell us we're wrong, Gordylocks@protonmail.com. If you're not yet subscribed to it, head on over to my Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com. Pre-orders for my book are now available on Amazon. Look up End of the Road, Inside the War on Truckers. Wasn't supposed to be happening till November, but apparently they're open already, so go hit it. All right, let's get to Blake and Jayme from the National Owner Operators Association. All right, g'day everybody. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Voice of Gord podcast. I'm Gord, and this is my voice. The other voices you're about to hear today are some folks I've been watching from a distance for a little while and thought, I'm writing this book on trucking, and they have a particular perspective on things, and they've been making some noise about it, and I've gotten to know them online here a little bit as of late, and thought, what the hell, let's have them on the podcast. Why not? So the other voices being this morning, Mr. Jayme Anderson and Blake from the TNOOA, the North American Owner Operators Association.
The National Owner Operators
National
Association.
Owner
You were
Operators
close.
Association. Yeah, I'm bad with acronyms. There's so many acronyms in trucking. You know what's
There
funny?
is.
Yeah, I'm writing this book, and I've been working on it for I don't know 6 months now. And my editor, who's sort of helping me write, like it was not my idea to write the book. I was approached by a publishing company, and they said, "Hey, write a book for us on trucking." And I said, "Okay, sure." And the editor they've assigned me is this lovely guy named Bill, and he keeps seeing all of these acronyms, right? And I always break it out, right? Like I'll say electronic logging device, and I'll put, parentheses ELD and DEF and SCR and, TNOOA. And he's like, dude, you need to make a glossary index for this, because this is like dealing with the military, man. It's just too many goddamn acronyms, and the readers need to be prepared when they get into your book. Right. So, TNOOA, tell us a little bit about yourselves, how long you've been around for, what your main beefs are, what you talk about, what you advocate for. Give us the lowdown.
So we advocate for truckers on a whole, drivers, owner operators, anybody who is new to the industry, who has been in the industry. It really doesn't matter. And all the associations are different. One association may not operate the same. It may not be your cup of tea. It's okay. You're free to be a part of whatever association you'd like to be a part of. Whatever suits you, right? And just as long, we just ask that as drivers in the industry, as people in the transportation industry, no matter who you align yourself with, just stay engaged and participate, be knowledgeable, um, and be united, because that's how things get accomplished. That's where you see success. When you unite together, no matter who you're a part of. And that's kind of like what I strive to always, put out there is we're here to help you. We're here to educate you. We're here to answer your questions. If you have issues, problems with a broker, carrier 411, carrier assured, filing on a bond, you just need information. You need to know how to do your operating costs, how to fight um, a, a, a inspection in data queue, anything really. You can come to us with it, and we will do our best to point you in the right direction, get you the information you need. We advocate for you, for the industry in Congress, with uh, all the way from the top to the bottom, transportation committee, all the way to your state, with your local reps, too. So it really doesn't matter. We'll reach out to everybody, that we can. And I think I had a couple of truckers who were getting citations, getting tickets, parking tickets in California, Southern California, when they were waiting to deliver at a facility. And they had no idea that they didn't have to pay those citations, that they could fight them. That is in the city code, that they were allowed to park, and allowed, if they were waiting, they could not be cited for that. But and the police, they know full well they're not supposed to do it, but they try to take advantage of them. And these truckers were all paying their tickets. And I said, no, you guys do not have to pay those, and walked them through how to do it and how to fight it. And now it's no longer an issue. So it's little things like that. Towing, if got predatory towing going on, an $18,000 tow for 4 minutes. It took 4 minutes to clear, and a broker tried to act on behalf of a carrier and authorize the the payment of the tow without the carrier's knowledge, and then turned around and tried to charge back the carrier for it, and withhold any of their future payments with their work. And I fought that, and they have not been able to charge back the carrier. They lost it. They tried to then claim, do a couple claims on their insurance, and the insurance said no way. So saved the carrier $18,000 from, chargeback.
That's good stuff. Jayme, sir, few folks on Twitter know you. Texas trucker, Jayme Anderson. You were recently involved in a collision in your own vehicle and spent some time in the hospital, and you're still kind of recovering. So maybe fill us in on that and a little bit about yourself.
Father's Day night, me and my wife got broadsided, T-bone. 3 days in intensive care, lacerated spleen. They had to do surgery, go up through my groin. Knees are sore, shoulders sore. Been back at work 3 days. I might have jumped the gun and got back in the truck a little too quick. I'm still sore and I'm kind of hurting, but it is what it is. We still got to roll. Bills still got to be paid. Fortunately, when I was in ICU, I wasn't even aware of it. A friend, a board member at SPTC, Dakota, Pink Cheetah, you probably heard the story with TQL. She put up a GoFundMe, and man, the community here on X and LinkedIn and even brokers, people I've had that we go round and around, they come through for me and got me enough money where we didn't lose everything. But the money don't last forever, so I had to get out and get back to work. My wife's back at work, and we're moving forward. Still beat up, banged up, still dealing with insurance and all that. But hell, it's the first accident I've ever been in my life, so it's all new to me, and I really don't know which direction to go. I'm probably going to be an attorney, but it is what it is. But we're all right. As far as me, yeah, I know a few people around. I'm one of them truckers that sometimes got a big mouth. I don't mind. If I think something or know something, I'm gonna put it out there and we're gonna speak about it, whether you like it or not. Got a lot of support. Got a few trolls. It is what it is. You're always gonna have them, but been in it for 2.5 years advocating. Got in with NOAA March a couple of years ago when they first started, and actually before we ever founded NOAA. And we've just been fighting for the trucker. I've made it plain and clear to everybody. It's about the men and women sitting in the seat doing the job and the way they're being victimized. I am a carrier. Me and my partner, we own our authority, small company, 2 trucks. We both own and operate our own equipment. Right now, we're running reefer freight. Managed the company for several years before we went on our own. That had been in business 25 years, up to 6 or 8 trucks. Learned how to dispatch through them, and just basically learned all about trucking. I don't know it all, of course, nobody does, but enough to get by and be successful out here in business and be able to make it. Because what we know is in the last 4 years, we've lost over 400,000 carriers that wasn't able to weather the storm. And that's what this is about, man. Right and wrongs, taking back control of the industry, putting the control back in the men and women actually doing the job, not the people sitting in Washington that most of them don't even know what we deal with out here on a daily basis. But that's what it is, man. I'm for the men and women sitting in the seat doing the job, and I'm going to continue to fight for them, speak out for them. Been really encouraging here in the last 6 months. Everything we've been saying and fighting for 2.5 years, we've had a lot of people jump into the fight, and influential people, and they've got a lot of voice than I've got, so that's great. I don't care about where the credit lands. I don't care who gets credit for what. Here's what I care about. I care about change. I care about making the market fair for the men and women doing the job. And I'll park it right there, brother.
You're an owner operator then, Jayme? You're not a company driver?
Yeah, I am an owner. I own my rig, and I'm half partners in our authority, so we're a carrier.
And does TNOOA have members who are merely drivers or people who may or may not be truckers at all?
Yeah, we have a lot of support on LinkedIn. I mean, X. That basically that's what we've done from the start when we started doing spaces and speaking out in spaces. At first, I was just a trucker that, wandered into a space. I was new to X, and, met some really good people, really good conservative people that cared. And, I started bringing up things that I seen out here, like the need for broker transparency, 49 CFR 371.3, and the fraud and everything that we're fighting right now. And, it took off a lot. And so we went on a very, very hard public education campaign to let the public know what we're dealing with. And what we found was they had no clue. All these people think we're out here getting rich running these trucks. But when we informed them and give them the truth with the proof, then they got behind us and rallied behind us and helped spread the message. And here we are today, right? We're still
Yeah,
here.
so on that note about, everyone thinks we're out here, you're out there making tons of money. And then you also mentioned the number of carriers that have gone out of business in the last few years. During COVID, there was this weird phenomenon. There might have been some people doing this which predated COVID, but I think during COVID it was kind of hot. Were these people like this gangster in California, G-Face, trying to sell, hey, you know, give me this money, I'll get you set up as a trucking company, I'll find you trucks, I'll find you drivers, give me this upfront investment, and then I'll handle it, then I'll get you loads, and then you're gonna be a trucking operator. And that's just sort of a newer version of things that like mega carriers and other carriers were doing 25, 30 years ago, with the like, hire somebody straight out of a truck driving school. Hey, we will make you an owner operator in 3 months. There was signs for this. I'm going to be talking about it in the book, that like when I was 18 years old, so this is 1997, I went to there's like a big Canadian truck show, industry conference thing at this place called the International Center in Toronto, up by the airport. And me and my old boss are like walking around, checking out the trucks, talking to people. And you would see these booths, and like there was this one carrier who had the ad, no experience necessary, sign up with us, we'll have you licensed, trained in your own truck, be your own boss in 90 days. And my boss looked at that and then sort of looked at me and said, these people are scumbags and they're setting folks up for failure. There's no way you know anything in 90 days. He said, getting your license should take longer than 90 days. Never mind getting enough experience to go into business for yourself. Like being in business acumen, the skills to run a business are different than the skills to be a truck driver. There's lots of truck drivers out there who probably couldn't, not cut out to run a business. Then there's some who are. And then there's some who are better at being in business than actually driving a truck. There's some overlap, but like it's sort of two different camps. And this notion, this idea that you can just like talk people into this, and then you have to ask why. Well, if this is such a good deal and you're going to make such good money, how come you're not doing it, right? Why do you have to like take some unsuspecting guy off the street, or in 1997, or in the more recent iteration of this, advertise it on YouTube or TikTok or one of these other online platforms, and try and get people to all of a sudden, you can just be your own boss and you can just get into trucking and you can make tons of money. Meanwhile, 400,000 carriers have gone out of business in however many last years. I was talking to Craig Fuller the other day. I cite FreightWaves all the time. They have like a whole section of their website, bankruptcies and layoffs. Like, this business has got so many problems. Meanwhile, we have these jokers out here still trying to reel people in that have got no clue, right? So I'm sort of curious, like, what's the position, such as there is one from TNOOA, about these sort of like scammy come-ons to try and drag people into trucking?
But it's funny that you mentioned G-Face, because his whole thing was he was teaching double brokering, and he was teaching people specifically how to start an authority, whether as a carrier, and then double broker loads uh, to other trucking companies and to themselves in order to make a ton of money. And so he's a criminal through and through. And that's what his deal was. And then every time they would shut him down or he would get caught, his bond, would get expired or somebody would be on his trail, he would just do it again. He would just get a new authority and he would start over. And he would always have one waiting in the wings. And brokers always love to say it's carriers committing the fraud, but it's a two-way street. The brokers are doing it as well, and it's not just one side needs to take accountability. It's
It's both
everybody.
sides, right? And
It's both sides.
on that note, so brokers, carriers, brokers are sort of intermediaries. Anyone listening to this should know that. In case you don't know, freight brokers, making phone calls, sending emails. They have loads. They find trucks for their customers. It can be a legitimate service. My uncle Chris started a brokerage in the mid 1980s, and it was very successful. And it was very successful because he was honest about it. And his operating philosophy was, you have to look after the truckers. If you don't look after the truckers, like, why are we even here? And so, him and his partner and my aunt built up this business. It got sold on and then eventually became Uber Freight Canada. They were really, really good at what they did. That's fine. But then there's the G faces of the world. And then there's this idea that's, layers of LLCs, multiple MC numbers, all these different entities, just that, it's a corporate entity, but the people behind it are all the same. And my issue with brokers, I don't know enough about the transparency issue, which is part of why I've got you guys here. Maybe I sound like an old school boomer conservative here. Maybe I'm just showing a little bit too much dirt under my fingernails. But to me, I think a lot of the people who get into brokering that turn into the sort of scammy types are people who are just looking for a way to avoid having a real job. Oh, I can just play on the computer all day and talk to people and hustle loads, take my rep, and I don't got to do anything. It's not hard. It's not hard labor, right? It developing relationships and doing this correctly and building up a business is hard in a way, but doing it correctly and building something like my uncle did takes years and years and years and years and years. It takes some knowledge. Like, my uncle didn't start a freight brokerage not knowing anything about trucking. My grandpa was a trucker. My uncle started trucking when he was a teenager, drove truck, got into dispatch, managed companies, worked his way up, knew what he was doing. Signing up with one of G Face's programs and then becoming a load broker, that's a different animal.
Exactly. And there's been an explosion in brokers and agents. And so there is, I can't cite the specific, it's in brokers, it's in the part of the CFR that has to do with being approved as a broker with the FMCSA, like the requirements for it, except here's the deal, nobody enforces it. So there is a requirement for you to have 2 years experience as a broker in the brokerage industry to be a broker for the FMCSA to approve you. The FMCSA does not enforce that. Okay. So you do see a lot of, hey, we'll train you. You can start this today. You can get your authority. Just get your bond. It's super easy. Why? Because the FMCSA does not enforce the rule that is there, says they have to have 2 years experience in the industry to obtain that authority. And I can't cite it off the top of my head right now, but I can get it to you later. That is a stipulation in there. And there has been an explosion, just like there were in carriers. There was an explosion in numbers of brokers entering the market during COVID. And I want to say it was I don't know, it was double the numbers. And now it's slowly decreasing. But you do see that across the board, they don't care to build that rapport with carriers on our side. And you have to wonder, are they treating their shippers like that as well? Because they will ghost you. They will not return calls. They will not return emails. They're not polite. they're not even professionally polite. You know, a vast majority of them are like, um, you deliver the BOL to them after a load is completed, and they don't even say thank you. Like nothing. You keep them, you go out of your way to keep them updated, you know, if tracking goes down or there's an accident or, you know, you're professional on your side and you're lucky to even get a response from them at all.
Yeah. They demand tracking and all of this, like,
We're going to fine you $150 if you lose tracking. Like you have to really keep track of it with screenshots and proof now to fight when they do try to come after you for appointment times or lost tracking. They will come after carriers, and I keep telling carriers, screenshot everything. Do not do anything over the phone verbally. Screenshot it all. Everything has to be documented through text or emails because unfortunately, a lot of these brokers are out of control with trying to keep as much money as they can from the loads. And without transparency, if you say, hey, my tracking was good, or I was at a shipper for 9 hours waiting to get loaded, and I have all of my documentation, but you're telling me the shipper is not paying the detention, I'd like the records. I'd like CFR 371.3. I want to see, I want transparency of this load. And that's one aspect of where transparency would help. Did you in fact get paid detention from the shipper and you're just denying it to me?
Right.
I
So
don't
this
know.
is right. All right. So when I first heard about you guys, there was this big raging debate online a year or two ago that started about the broker transparency thing. And I'm sympathetic to the arguments of people like Kevin Rutherford who say, if everybody knows what your price is between you and a broker, then someone's going to come and undercut you and it becomes a race to the bottom. But what you guys are saying is that it's about more than the advertised price to haul the load. It's about all the factorials, and it's about the agreement between the shipper and the broker, and they're hiding a bunch of this stuff on you. It's not necessarily about the price of the load.
Yes.
Okay. That's good to know because I thought, man, this is an awful lot of fighting about this is an awful lot of
Just
fighting
about rates.
just about rates. And I mean, Kevin has a point. You guys have a point. I studied economics a little bit kind of on the side. And one of the things for a functioning market, a market will not work unless people know what prices are, right? You have to know. If you don't know, if you don't have that price signal, it doesn't tell you anything about what you're paying for, what value you're getting. Everybody has to be able to make these rational decisions
Informed
about value.
decisions.
Right. And so, as a comparison, healthcare. One of the problems that healthcare is a disaster in the United States, and I'm not trying to say that like doctors are bad or nurses are bad or whatever. It's the system. Insurance companies and hospital operators engage in what's called price opacity, or they stop it. Like it's opaque. Nobody knows what the prices are because it's all done between the insurance companies and the hospitals. And you, as the person receiving the care or seeking the care, or you want to get a surgery or you want to get something handled, you have no idea what you're paying for because it's all getting handled through the insurance companies. And then the insurance companies and the hospital operators are maybe not the most above board things, right? And this is why like healthcare costs are ridiculous. So there was this dude in Oklahoma, a business guy. He started a place called the Oklahoma Surgery Center many years ago. It's been around for a while now. And his whole deal when he started this hospital, he got some investors and some partners on board, hired a bunch of doctors, did the thing, and said, we are not dealing with the insurance companies at all. We don't deal with insurance. We don't deal with Medicare or Medicaid. You pay cash or credit or we'll finance it for you. And you know, as a customer coming into our hospital, exactly what you're getting, and you know exactly how much it costs. And surgeries and procedures at this hospital in Oklahoma are usually a third or less of what they are at other hospitals because everybody knows what the price is, right? So with trucking, my whole when I'm approaching this broker transparency issue, my thought is this: if a broker is acting as an intermediary and then selling a load on the market, and he's hiding what his cut is and is not telling you what the actual price is from the customer, you don't know what the price of that load actually is, right? Now I understand you sort of have to, in order to prevent the race from the bottom happening, it's better for not everybody to know. But at the same time, if you don't know what the real price is, you're not getting correct information to make decisions. So there's this sort of tension going on here. What do you have to say to that?
Let me give you something on that, Gord, because I wanna express this. So the race to the bottom. Let's talk about the race to the bottom for a minute. We've been through this. We've been down this road, and we said from the start, the race to the bottom is started on the broker's side. Do you think them shippers aren't telling that broker and that broker and that broker what that broker's bidding to lower the rates so that next broker will go under them? You see what I'm saying? So the race to the bottom has already started. It started on the broker side. Brokers are competing against other brokers. That's what's dropping the rates. Overcapacity. Carriers are competing against carriers. Correct. Supply and demand. Right? That's what's beat into our heads. My biggest thing about broker transparency is I want to see them accessorials. Okay. I want to know if that broker's getting a fuel surcharge and they're giving you an all-in rate. I want to know the percentages. I want them to prove to me that what the expert says, the 13, 14, 15% average commissions for a brokerage. Now remember this, brokerage, that's the brokerage company. Does that include the 25 or 30% that the agent is getting paid? And then the brokerage gets 13%? I mean, the whole problem is that we're working out here in the industry in a market and we have no tools. We have nothing dependable to go on to base it on other than our operational costs. So what we've seen happen is with the Biden administration, okay, COVID, everything was good, rates was great. There was a capacity crunch. There was a lot of freight moving around the country. Rates went up. When Biden come into office and instituting the trucking action plan, the flow initiative, the task force on supply chain disruptions. What was the disruptions? The disruptions was the rates was too high. The shippers didn't like paying the rates they had to pay. That was the disruption.
Yeah, no, you're right. So, they said that. It's right in there. It is right in that very first announcement that Biden made. Oh, carriers are getting an extra 7 to 12% premium over their normal rates. They were complaining because of a 12% price increase. Right there.
That's supply and demand. Free market, right? I mean, it's a free market capitalism, supply and demand. But when it's not in their favor, then they want to come in and tamper with markets and manipulate markets and do price fixing. And that's exactly what we've seen. So what they done, Biden took the memorandum that was issued by Obama in 2016 to not enforce the English language proficiency. At the same time, opened the borders to illegal immigration, mass immigration, asylum, pumped all of these illegals in here, or asylum seekers, or visa workers, or HB1, HB12 visas, or whatever visa it was, because there was a bunch of them. The Ukraine visa for asylum seekers for refuge. Pumped them all in here and started issuing these non-domiciled CDLs to them. Why? So they used the lack of enforcement on English proficiency to spur this, and Obama started it, Biden finished it with the trucking action plan, and dumping all of these unqualified, underqualified drivers into the market to lower rates. That's market manipulation. That is antitrust. That is against the Sherman Act. So they broke the law. And I've been screaming at Duffy and everybody else, we need full investigations in this, and we need to be made whole the carriers, not me, I'm not out of business, but the carriers that have went out of business needs to be made whole because the government colluded with big business, used that worked with the Flow Initiative. I can name a bunch of people, but they colluded together to depress rates and drop rates through the illegal immigration and asylum, and
Right. Yeah. So
they
I have a
broke the
little,
law.
I have a little saying for this, and I might not have even made it up. I might have read it somewhere, but everyone is a capitalist until the price of labor is bid up. Right. And then they want favors from the government in order to push that price back down. Because no, we can't pay the working man. That's against the rules. That's no
Yeah,
good.
heaven forbid.
Well, you know that is exactly what the ATA's done since the Motor Carrier Act of 1980, pushing a driver shortage, pushing rules and regulations to slow us down and hamper us and cost us money because they wanted to take market share. You know, that's where we're at. The American Trucking Association is the enemy of every man and woman sitting in the seat. They're the reason why you're not getting all hours worked, all hours paid. They're the reason you can't get overtime. They're the reason why your wages have been stagnant and you're still working for the same rates or lower than you was in 1979. Through their special interest money, their lobby money in Washington, D.C., to the Congress and Senate, Congress controls the laws, controls the FMCSA and DOT, and hey, where are we at today?
Right.
So every trucker out here needs to know and understand, first and foremost, the name is deceiving of the American Trucking Association. I call them the Anti-Trucker Association, the ATA.
Right. Well, the ATA does. I've said this. I've said the same thing to people before, Jamie. The ATA does not represent truckers. I don't even think that the ATA represents their member carriers. What they are really doing is representing the shipper's desire to make sure that the price of freight remains suppressed. Okay. And I want to ask you guys, because you know your big thing is broker transparency and sort of figuring out what to do with all those guys. Um, ATA and brokerages, where does that all fit together? My initial thought on that is it doesn't, because the megas have got like their own internal thing and they've got contracts with like the really big shippers. And I don't know how much the ATA membership interact with the world of brokers. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that.
Well, the ATA, TIA, Transportation Intermediaries Association. I mean, let's go down the list. I don't think OIDA is necessarily nefarious, but I think they've been neutered. Uh, I was a member of OIDA. I talked to several people there. I know some of the people there, and it's good people. I felt like personally that they just wasn't pushing hard enough. You know, when they take a loss, take that L, and they just move on. I'm not about that. I'm not going to take that L. I'm going to keep fighting. But so the ATA, the TIA, you know, that sits on the director circle of the TIA. You've seen what that come out on transparency. Transparency, and this is where we've been from the start, will be the number one tool of fighting fraud, scam, and fraud. We're working blind. So we get a rate confirmation many times. I don't even know who I'm working for. Has that load been double brokered? Has it been co-brokered 2 or 3 times, sent down the line with each broker taking a cut off of it? Broker transparency, if they had to come with it, we would know that. The reason why it's important, now we've never pushed, oh, we need broker transparency up front. No, 48 to 72 hours after the load's completed, then we get the transparency, and then we can make a determination if we want to continue to do business with a brokerage if we see they've done something bad. Or if we've seen, okay, well, the load started at, say, a small brokerage, a new brokerage, they had a good rate on it. It's sent down to another brokerage, they took a commission off of it, sent it down, then it ended up at Landstar, double brokered before it was over. It might have been through 4 or 5 hands. It's important that we know that to make logical business decisions to continue to do business. Now, I'll tell you straight up, and everybody knows this. I've said it from the start. I have a network of brokers that I've built over the years that are my friends. that I trust, that they trust me. They know when they put it on my truck, I'm going to get the job done. I'm going to communicate well. If there's a problem, they're going to be the first ones to know about it. I've got their personal phone numbers. When I get in an area, that's my contacts. I look on that, I see, okay, well, this brokerage has got the load posted that I'm interested in, and I call my contact. I use them relationships, and they're important because there's good brokers out here. There's a lot of good brokers out here, but you got the bad ones. I'll give you an instance. So yesterday I was on the phone with an agent from JB Hunt. I told you about it earlier. 15 or 20 minutes we went back and forth. I actually told him one time, I said, look, man, I'm not interested, and hung up. 10 minutes later, he called me back and he said, okay, well, I'll take your rate. It was 340 miles at $1,500 on 1-and-1 from Laredo to Houston. -10, picked that evening, delivered the next morning. He agreed to it. We come to terms. Okay, well, we need to get you set up. Okay, well, I don't know why, because we've run for JB Hunt in the past. So they sent us a highway. We done the highway. I had brokers blowing up my phone, calling me, asking me, trying to get me to take a load, and I'm telling them, no, I'm covered. I'm covered right now. Let me see how this load goes. If something happens, I'll call you back. Because I don't do business that way. If I give you my word and we negotiate and we come to terms, I'm not going to fall off your load because somebody else offers me something different. That's bad business. I don't do it. If I
do
give
to
you
us a
my
lot.
word, and it happens to us all, and it happened here. So that's where I'm going with this. So 30 or 45 minutes we went through the process. We had to set up with highway, and then we had to set up with 360. 30 or 45 minutes of my day gone looking for a load, brokers calling me, and then I get everything done and call him, or he called me back. He says, well, the shipper won't approve the rate. Come on, man. You know, and that's what we deal with daily out here.
It's not only
Pick and
that
choose your
too.
brokers.
You've got a paper trail. You have a paper trail. So let's say it was co-brokered, because heaven forbid we say double brokering. Let's say it was co-brokered a couple of times. And what happens if during one of those co-brokerages, which they're supposed to disclose to you, but they don't, when it's a co-brokered load, and if you ask for it, they're supposed to disclose it to you. Anyways, that's like in MAP 21. What happens when one of those brokers might be a bad broker that took it, or a carrier that gets a hold of it and double brokers it? And then, the truck takes it and they can't collect payment on it. And there's no CFR, no enforcement of CFR 371.3. There hasn't been. What happens to that honest carrier when they go to get paid and they cannot get enforcement of 371.3? Whose bond do they go after? Where their paper trail is broken? They have to go to courts, and they have to figure out and subpoena the paper trail from who? A carrier, a double brokered carrier that's disappeared, a ghost broker that got a hold of it and is gone. The bond is disappeared, is exhausted already because they've been doing this for a month or two, and it's already gone. Then they go after the shipper, and the shipper's like, because that's their last resort. That's their only recourse. And then the shipper fights them on it. And what paperwork do they have besides their BOL to prove, their case, their payment?
Right. Well,
That's where
this is the problem with all of these layers of middle people, right? Like, I understand the utility of a broker, and what the broker really has is knowledge. I know people that need stuff moved. I know carriers that have trucks. It's just a knowledge middleman, right? That has some utility necessary in the marketplace. Fine. The problem is too many of them. And then again, we get people that don't want to work. Oh, it's easier to be a broker. Now you become a co-broker. And who was I talking to about this a few weeks ago? I recorded another podcast. Dale Prax from Freight Validate. And he said, like during COVID, when the government's handing out money and lots of people don't want to come to work, a lot of brokers and carriers and a lot of brokers and shippers start hiring offshore guys, right? Like, hey, do all this backroom stuff, admin, brokering. Here's how it all works. Taught them how to do it. They did the work, and then COVID was over and the money stopped rolling in. So now Americans want to get back in the market, but like all these guys in Serbia and Colombia and wherever else they are like, well, hey man, we were still doing this and we know how to do it. We'll just keep brokering from here. We'll start our own thing. So now
Yeah.
you've got brokers all over the world. And what incentive do they have to follow the law or be honest? I mean, unless they like really want to stay in business and keep doing it. If they're just scammers that want to like cook for a month, make, 5 or 6 figures and then disappear, there's literally nothing stopping them from doing that, right?
There's no deterrent.
No, exactly. So I have a friend in Canada who's a freight agent for a company who shall remain nameless, and so will my friend. And he told me about this case where uh, a very large carrier got hosed by some of this fraudulent broker activity. So for a month, these guys were booking loads using MC and DOT numbers that they'd taken pictures of guys' trucks at the truck stop, then factored the load, got paid, got away with it for a month, and then disappeared to the tune of like hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the pocket of this one company. There's an active lawsuit going on about that in the United States right now. And the guys who pulled this off were in British Columbia, and their last name was Singh with an H at the end. Good luck figuring that out because everybody from that particular community is named Singh.
Yeah, there's like thousands of them. It's so hard to track them down when it's such a common name.
Yeah, it's not even a name. If you understand Punjabi culture and the Sikh faith, Singh is an honorific. It's not your name. It's not a last name. It's not a family name. It means a follower of Guru Nanak, right? It's like saying, you're a football fan. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. All right, well, you're Bill. Singh means lion who fought in service of Guru Nanak to like defend the Sikh faith. It's an honorific title, right? It's not your real name.
Yeah, no. So you were asking earlier, you had asked earlier what the big corporations, how they benefit from um
The mega
from all of
carriers,
this,
yeah.
the mega
Well,
carriers.
yeah, the mega
I'll
carriers
tell
and the brokers, yeah.
I wanted to touch on that. Um, when a business is doing well, they pay well, right? When they need to make cuts, where do they make cuts first? They always make cuts in the labor. It's payroll first, right? They lay people off, they cut wages, they cut bonuses. Okay, you're looking at something that is no different. How do they benefit from keeping uh the their turnover high, their unqualified drivers high? Uh, how do they benefit from doing all of those things that they're doing that we discussed, right? It's by keeping the wages low. That's how they benefit from it. If they can keep their wages that they pay their drivers low, they in turn keep the rates low that they pay out when they have to put that out on the spot market when they can't cover their own contracts.
Right. So they use load brokers to sort of help facilitate their own wage suppression. That's interesting. It's funny. I was reading, so I'm writing this book. I'm reading a lot of studies, academic work. I'm trying to sort of like bridge our world and then the world of the people who study all this and then mix it together and come up with my own narrative arc, right? So anyway, there's this guy, Steve Vishelli. He wrote a book, Big Rig Trucking and the Decline of the American Dream, back in 2016. Broadly speaking, his book was about the lease operator model and how it sort of like makes indentured servants and how it works. And really, really good book. Highly recommend everybody reads it. Vishelli and another academic were asked to advise the California Department of Agriculture on how the agriculture industry in California could get and keep drivers, because during this COVID demand spike, loads coming out of California like went really high, and all the shippers go online and then they're listening to the American Trucking Association, and everyone's telling them, oh, it's because there's a driver shortage. And so the Department of Agriculture is like, well, how do we get more drivers? So they ask Vishelli. Vishelli goes and like does all these studies, talks to different types of agricultural truckers in California, runs the numbers, tells the state of California the same thing we all know. There's no shortage of truck drivers here, guys. You're going through them constantly and they just keep quitting because you're not paying them. And so in this study, he shows examples of how rates for certain loads of produce like went from like $8,000 to get your load of lettuce or strawberries or whatever from California to Chicago or Philadelphia. Then it went up to 13, right? If you're a truck driver working for a mega carrier, and that mega carrier, their reefer division, gets another $5,000 for that load, the driver's mileage rate does not change, right? If you're a company driver and when the markets are hot and the price goes up, what large trucking company gives their drivers a mileage bonus for when the market is hot?
They don't.
Zero.
They
Exactly.
keep it.
So I'm like,
But when the market tanks, they're quick to cut your pay.
That's right. That's right. And so these California shippers are like, oh, what do you mean we're not paying the drivers enough? This company got an extra $5,000. We can't afford this. The drivers are getting paid too much. I'm like, unless you're an owner operator, unless you own that truck, if you're just a guy driving it, you ain't seeing a penny of that extra $5,000, right?
Nope. And that's what's happening now with the brokers on the spot market. Not all, brokers, but we think, there's a lot of that still going on with the owner ops. We took a load of hay across the country, and the shipper, the receiver, they were really, really upset. So you're not supposed to talk about, sometimes you're not even supposed to talk to the shipper, right? The brokers are like, don't talk to him. Don't talk to him, or you're violating our agreement. Don't talk to my customer. If you have a question, you ask me. Don't talk to the shipper and don't talk to the receiver. They'll put that stipulation in a carrier packet. And the my husband, he's our owner operator driver. He was talking to the shipper receiver. I forget who he was talking to, one of them, right? And they were really upset that they paid like over $10,000, just over $10,000 for this heavy ass load of hay. And that the truck only got $4,000. That's how much the broker paid.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I missed something.
You, the customer paid a little over $10,000 for the load, and the broker only paid the truck $4,000.
Oh, 60, so kept 60% of the price for himself, and
Uh-huh. But
no truck payments, no fuel, no
but
driver,
during
no tires.
negotiations, the broker said that was all he had in it. If he paid any more, he was going to take a loss. That was all he had in it, and that he couldn't get the customer to pay more. That's another reason why CFR 371.3 would be awesome, because if he hadn't talked to that shipper receiver, he wouldn't have known that that's how much the load actually paid, that the broker was just straight up lying to him.
But let me tell you something. Think about this. That's fraud. That's wire fraud. When they do that, but when you bring that up to the fraud fighters, they will shrug their shoulders. Oh, well, we all do that. It ain't nothing. But if you're going to get serious about fighting fraud, you don't pick and choose the fraud you're going to fight. You're going to fight all the fraud or get out of it, right?
Yeah.
I remember. So sometimes carriers kind of act as brokers, right? So let's say you got a small trucking company. All of a sudden, your customer gets a big order. They got all these loads, and you as the carrier physically can't do it. So you start calling your buddies and your fellow trucking companies and saying, "Hey, man, can you get me a truck? Can you get me a truck?" Um, the guys that I grew up working for as a kid, when they did that, they were very upfront, right? Like the gentleman's name was Earl Paddock. He's no longer with us. He passed away in the 90s, but his kids still run the business, Scott and Mac Paddock, and then his other brother Marty started his own thing. But anyway, Earl was always upfront with people when he brokered a load. I get $50 for the phone call and giving it to you, and you get the rest. That's it. That's all he took was $50. He's like, "You're doing the work. You're helping me. My customer needs stuff moved. I'll take $50 for the arrangement for you, and you get the rest."
Yeah.
That seems pretty fair.
Yeah, I've got to get. I'm gonna be occupied for a minute.
Okay.
Now, does $50 per load pay for a whole office and allow you to have employees and pay? Okay, maybe that don't work in 2025, but taking $6,000 out of a $10,000 load, that's
It's painful.
yeah, that ain't right.
No, and we see it a lot. When we do get instances and proof of, that happening, I submitted like a 26 some odd page report to the FMCSA during the comments. I submitted another 30 some odd page report from my own company. But I did it confidential, so that it can't even be requested through a FOIA request, because I submitted so much proof and documentation of this happening, that the Biden administration would ignore it. Pete Buttigieg literally said to me,
You talked
show
to
me how.
you talked to Buttigieg directly?
Hmm? Yeah. And he said, show me how this affects safety, and prove to me how this affects safety. And then I'll see what I can do about it, because we can't do anything unless it's concerning safety.
Hold on, dude. Your ability to pay for maintenance and all of the administrative and compliance back end stuff that's the bane of everyone's existence
Your
is not
equipment, your
it's not
maintenance.
it's not free. This is all dependent on. So
Exactly.
there's a guy. So there's a guy, another academic, former truck driver, former guest of my show. His name's Michael Belzer. He writes this book in 2000 called Sweatshops on Wheels. It was the first sort of academic inquest into the fate of drivers' wages after deregulations. This is 20 years after deregulation. Belzer has got this website, and it's literally called saferates.com. His whole thing is like, if you want a safe, functional trucking industry in this country, you have to pay for it. You can't just keep doing this race to the bottom. Belzer was one of the people that consulted with Buttigieg and his fucking buddies from McKinsey who are running this whole task force. Like, every time I talk to people who like ran into this Biden task force or ran into Buttigieg, it's the same thing. Everyone told them exactly what they needed to do, and they did exactly the opposite.
They
Like,
ignored it.
what in the hell is going on here? Everyone I've talked to about this, it's the same story.
We was in contact with Belzner too. Mike Boston from the National Owner Operators Association talked to him pretty regularly.
Yep. Mike talked to Buttigieg and let's see, Kenneth Riddle and Larry Minor and all of those people, and the people on the transportation committee. Mike has sat down in some of their offices and spoken with them face to face about
kidding.
things.
I didn't realize you guys had gotten that far up the food chain in your advocacy that you like. Oh wow, good for you. I mean,
yeah.
it's a bummer that they didn't listen.
We had lobbyists in Washington every day.
I think that they did listen. It's just that some don't take action, some don't do anything. But I do think that they did listen. There were some responsive ones like Maria Cantrell's office out of Washington. Her staffers were real responsive. The the oh gosh, what's his name? What's his name in Georgia?
Mike Collins?
Yes, Collins. He's very responsive. His staffers are great. There is another one who I email with their staffers on a regular basis. So yeah, see
They
the thing
know.
about
They know.
yeah, so the thing about NOAA is there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, because we are the administrative part of our group of, our association is small. I can't do everything myself. I volunteer, all my time. And Mike can't do everything all himself. Texas can't do everything all himself. We each have, our own little roles, that we do, along with, trying to help our members. And so it's all about prioritizing everything. And I can't put out on constantly on social media, hey, this is I talked to so and so today, or I did this today. And then sometimes there's also I don't want the ATA, I don't want the TIA knowing who I'm talking to, when I'm talking to them, or what I'm talking to them about, because I don't really want.
They will arrive like a plague of locusts and eat up everything that you just said and try and
Mhm,
dismiss you. Yeah,
exactly.
I
And you
so
see it on, and that's kind of what you've seen on X happen. And that's why I don't put my name out there. I don't put my business name out there, because they come after me. They will blacklist me. They've come after my children. It's crazy.
right. So I have the privilege and benefit of I don't want to say I have nothing to lose, but I don't own a truck. I get criticized by this. People are like, "Oh, you've never bought your own fuel. You don't know what you're talking about." Guilty as charged. I don't own a truck. I'm not even working. I can't get fired from a job. I'm unemployed. So I can use my real name. I can say whatever the hell I want. What are they going to do? Take away my podcast that I charge nothing for? Like, great, whatever,
You can't
but
hurt me.
no, they can't. Not really. And it just, I'm a slow learner. This is, I'm admitting to being dumb here, but like, after hearing what you just told me about Buttigieg and this trucking task force ignoring you guys too, I keep hearing this from everybody. Belzer, David Carell from MIT, Steve Viscelli, all these people that were involved in advising the Biden administration have told me all the same damn thing. Everyone's trying to yell at them at maximum volume. These are the problems in trucking. This is how you can fix it. And none of that stuff got taken on. And then the actions they did do made everything 100 times worse. And now we've got all these accidents happening all over the place and people getting killed left, right, and center. And it's like, a couple of people, I think Jayme's mentioned this, and the ATU guys in Arkansas, like, there needs to be an investigation into this. I don't know if you can do anything about it now. Like, whatever, Biden's basically a walking corpse anyway. But like Buttigieg and these McKinsey guys that handled this, like, they need to be pulled in front of an inquiry and said, everyone that talked to you about this told you to do X, you did C, and everything got worse. There's a bunch of people dead and thousands of businesses that went out of business. What
Mhm.
the
And
fuck were you guys doing? Right?
yep. And I keep telling people, like, I put it out there every so often when it comes up too, especially, these people want to go after Amazon or mega carriers, if for these accidents and these deaths. They should actually be going after the FMCSA for their dereliction of duty in not enforcing the CFRs that were in place, like the English language proficiency. If they had enforced those things, would some of those people still be alive? Absolutely, because those people wouldn't have been on the road to begin with.
Yeah, no,
Audit,
it's
aud, auditing this CDL schools. Each state is responsible for performing audits on the CDL schools and turning in those audits to the FMCSA. The chain is broken. I don't think that the states are doing it. And they're certainly not, I don't think they're performing or requiring the schools to turn in their audits, much less performing the audits, and then not turning them into the FMCSA. And if they are turning them into the FMCSA, what is the FMCSA doing with them? Another dereliction of duty. If the FMCSA is not receiving the audits, why aren't they following up on it?
Right. Another thing that drives me wild about the FMCSA, amongst the many things that drive me wild and all of us wild about the FMCSA, is, I remember one time I was going through their website and their little like news and what they've been up to. And there was just constant references to like auditing new ELD systems. Oh, we took this one off the market. Oh, we put out this bulletin. We did all this stuff with the ELDs. I mean, okay. But I keep hearing about this backdooring issue where, all these guys from the Chicago Volvo Mafia and some of these sort of like scummier bottom feeder carriers. And you see this on Twitter all day long, like screenshots, hey, I'm working for this guy and this is his telegram and he's telling me he can fix up my ELD and I can go over my hours of service. We're seeing anecdotal evidence of this everywhere. And like, where are they? Like make just make a rule. If your carrier's not based in the United States and your ELD system's got some backdoor with a guy in Poland or the Ukraine rewriting the hours for you, like you just shouldn't be in business. Like you're not allowed to play in our sandbox if you're doing this. Like it's so simple. Oh
Yeah,
man, it's so frustrating.
The software is insane what they're able to do with it. And I think Rep Babin was asking about the ELDs. Um, and I reached out to him, but I have not heard back from him. He asked he asked Louis in a little hearing about ELDs and the um oh, what's the word? How they're sensitive, how they could be easily manipulated. And he was very concerned about that because a lot of the ELDs coming out now, you can control the truck when it turns off or on. You can kill the engine, and drivers are having to figure out how to keep it running, like if they're idling in hot or cold weather. The carrier, the ELD can have a restriction on it to where it won't allow you to idle longer than 20 minutes and it'll kill the engine. And so you're not allowed to idle for that long. And they're putting those stipulations, for climate change,
Right. Yeah. No.
emissions, right?
I just
But
fin- I just finished writing this chapter of the book, and I mentioned that.
there was a study that came out not too long after that ship had run into the bridge last year. Remember
Oh, the
the
Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore. Yeah.
yes, okay. So there was a study that came out for ELDs that I forwarded to Rep Babin, and where it talked about the security issues with the ELDs and how they were able to easily manipulate them and hack into them and take them over. And that has to do with autonomy too, because essentially, unless it's a completely closed circuit, they're going to be able to um, they're going to be able to hack into it just the same way as they are the ELDs currently and do whatever they want to do in there. They can siphon the data out, they can adjust the logs, they can play with the clocks, they can tamper with the locations, they can do whatever they want to do once they're inside.
Yeah. No, it's incredible to me, and like, you know, I remember the first time I ever wrote anything on the internet was in 2017 on the eve of the ELD mandate. This little blog asked me to write something for them about it, and I was like, this is just going to cause nothing but trouble, and it's going to get hacked, and it's disrespectful to drivers anyway. We're all adults here. We don't need to do this. And, you know, Overdrive did their study in 2018 or 19 showing the implementation of the ELD mandate caused more aggressive driving, more crashes. It made everything worse. And now several years later, it just continues to get worse because they're getting backdoored again. You know, these guys in Poland, Ukraine, Serbia, wherever. Oh, we'll just switch it, put in a ghost driver. You can just keep going. Just work 20 hours straight. Just make your delivery, make your money. Don't worry about it. We got you covered. Great. Like, what was the point? What even was the point of this?
So under COVID, okay, so running reefer, I was running exempt commodities, restocking at distribution centers. So we ran 2.5 years wide open, no ELD, in personal conveyance. Only requirement was you take a 10-hour break before you take on your next load. And this is what I can tell you for a fact. I've never been more rested as a driver, an OTR driver, than I was during that time. I could get far enough ahead schedule. If I needed to stop and take a 3-4 hour nap, I could take a 3-4 hour nap and still be on schedule or ahead of schedule. Racing the ELD is not good. And like you said, Gord, the studies are in. Colleges and universities have done studies and proved that they, in fact, have not made the road more safe, that they're more dangerous than ever. But do you think the government's ever going to back off the ELD? I mean, no, because the mega carriers require the ELDs. So, and that's the way we go with rules and regulations out here. If it's required for the mega carriers because they're unqualified or underqualified drivers, they're new drivers because they can't keep a man or woman sitting in the seat long enough to actually get them trained. Then they're going to push it down on us, the owner operators, the real professionals on the road. And that's just the way it's going to be until we have a voice again. And it's been too long since we haven't had a voice. I mean, the last real voice the American trucker has had was in 1973 during the oil embargo, the strike. And I believe in my heart that was the whole goal and push behind deregulation. The Motor Carrier Act of 1980 was in response to the strike of 73. Truckers had too much power and they had to take the power away from the truckers, so they transferred it to the brokerages. Truly believe that. And that's what it is, what it is.
I think that ELDs are great, but not hours of service. And I think that they're great for investigation and they should only be for law enforcement. Because there are so many bad people out there, and it is a great tool for law enforcement to have, for, safety and trafficking and drugs and loads and keeping people honest and safe on the road. But the hours of service, I don't agree with those, because like Texas,
That's a very common opinion, very common
like
position.
Texas just said, he was so rested and safer, without having to worry about those hours of service, without those disruptions. I actually spoke with the SBA in a roundtable meeting, about the hours of service, and I said, these are grown adults running their own business. They do not need to be babysat and told, hey, guess what, guys, you're in preschool, it's nap time. You have to take a 10-hour break right now, or else, it's nap time. And it's funny because shortly after, about 2.5 weeks after that roundtable, the CVSA came out with a pushback and said that they wanted to take away or what was it with personal conveyance now? Like they want to come after personal conveyance. And I was like, no, guys, I just put up a really good argument for, you need to relax the hours of service, to not have so many stipulations and regulations. You need to look at sleeper berth. You need to look at this stuff because it's not beneficial for drivers out on the road when they have an accident or traffic or they have an upset tummy, they need to, rest. It just doesn't work how it is.
Yeah. So to uh, go along with Jamie's point about being rested, my last real long haul job was in Australia. I mean, I did some other stuff since I've came back home, but when I was driving road trains in Western Australia did not have ELDs. Maybe they do now. I don't think they do, but anyway, paper logbooks. But their logbook rules were real simple. 24 hours. You have a 17-hour window to get 14 hours of work done. How that looks, we don't care. You must show every day 1 7-hour period of you in the bunk, resting, sleeping, hotel, don't care. 7 hours off out of every 24-hour period. Western Australia allows you to work 3 weeks straight without a day off. You can work 21 days straight. When I was down there, I mean, I was working hard, but always woke up every morning, no problem. Had a coffee, went to work. Never felt rushed. They never pushed me. You know, pull over, have a nap whenever you need to have a nap. There's your logbook. Have your 7-hour break every day. Do what you gotta do. Like, as much as they were very micromanaging in other ways, and they were a huge pain in the ass in other ways, as far as the hours of service stuff went, best system I've ever dealt with.
You should make comments for that to the FMCSA because they opened up a thing for that topic for input.
Is that open right now?
Yeah, it's open until September 2nd, and I'll send you the link. I need to
Yeah, thank
start
you.
posting it on social media. But yeah, because they're looking for, and he actually, Duffy has mentioned that they're looking at the hours of service stuff, just kind of like that little teaser that he does with illegal brokering. He mentioned it, the other day, but he also mentioned it during What the Truck too, and nobody really, he didn't elaborate on it, and nobody really picked up on it. And then he mentioned it again in his op-ed that he did with that it's I think Breitbart.
Breitbart, yeah. So
Breitbart,
speaking of
yeah.
Duffy, wasn't there some news yesterday about him being promoted or getting shunted off to Space Force for a little while or
He's going to
something?
be the temporary interim administrator for NASA. And then
Really?
yeah, and then we're still waiting for Derek Bars to be confirmed. He's the intermediary administrator for the FMCSA right now.
I thought Bars was in, like he was done.
His confirmation, the last time I checked, hadn't been he hasn't been confirmed yet. He was just an intermediary.
What's your opinion on Bars?
He's affiliated with the ATA heavily. I love that he has a law enforcement background. I hope that he's not corrupted by the ATA. I know that it was just like an offshoot, like a advisory, for them. But, when you're rubbing elbows with all of those people, what kind of working relationship do you have with them? And that would be my
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah, I looked into Bars when I first heard about him. The Schmitz told me about that guy, and Will Cook told me about him too a little while back. And I started looking into his stuff and his websites and his affiliations and his career. And yeah, he's been a cop most of his life. And he goes to a lot of conferences and he does a lot of enforcement meetings and he's a meeting enjoyer. And I don't trust people who like meetings.
Hmm.
If you're an operational person, the meeting people are mostly one of your worst enemies. And the guy's never, no offense to him, like I get it. We have to have cops, we have to have law enforcement. This is not an insult to his job. However, that's all he's ever done. He's never
Yeah.
worked on our side of it or seen our side of it, right? He's never had to like chase a broker to get paid. He's never sat at a dock for 12 hours and not got paid. He's never had to change a tire on the side of the road.
Yeah,
He's
he did implement a program in Florida to where he had the DOT officers ride with truckers. And that was part of their, like, how you do a ride along with a cop, in the community. Okay, so it wasn't mandatory, but it was highly encouraged. I think is how I read that, if I am remembering correctly. But the DOT officers would ride with a trucker for, a day or certain number of hours so that they could experience and know what a truck driver was doing during the course of their day. So it wasn't just one-sided. And I liked that. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, well, good for him if he did that. I mean, I the ride along thing is good because you get to like experience traffic and what it's like to like see it from our view operationally out on the road, but you don't get the whole thing unless you've done it for a while and you've had the delays. You've showed up at some place and your dispatcher's like, oh, they gave you a 3 a.m. appointment time, the only time we can get you in. And then you have to like adapt your whole schedule for this appointment. And then you show up and then they don't give you a door forever. Like there's so much more to it than just driving down the road.
Yeah.
And the you know when you've been a career driver like Jayme has or like I used to be, like you don't understand the like not being home for weeks at a time. You don't understand the other adversities of the job. And that's why like I'm sure Mr. Bars is a nice guy and he's a great cop, whatever. But that's all he's ever done. And I don't believe that you can have somebody in FMCSA running the place that's only ever been a cop. He's only ever tried to like clean up messes and do investigations. He's not addressing the economic drivers behind all of this. He probably like if you said to Derek Bars, "Hey, dude, what are you going to do about all these guys in Poland and Serbia that are backdooring ELDs?" What's his answer going to be? Is he going to do anything?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know?
That's why I say I have my reservations, about it. So we'll see.
Well, to me, the ATA connection is a definite red flag. I'm not happy about it. Just like I wasn't happy about the Texas Trucking Association being on stage with OIDA in Texas when all that went down. Of course, they was going to be there, even though we know where ATA stands on. They made it come around at the last moment because they didn't want to take the loss and try to take a little bit of credit for something that they had no part in. We know they fought the English proficiency in Arkansas, the Arkansas Trucking Association, which is an arm of the American Trucking Association, just like the Texas Trucking
Yeah,
Association,
they're state
all the
level
state
affiliates.
association. Correct. So I had some concern there. Hey, I wish I had one of them DOT officers with me today. I'm 79 miles from my house, and I'm gonna run out of time in this dock. I'm gonna have to pull out there on the road and take a 10-hour break before I can go 79 miles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Let
see,
let
and
them
that's
get some of that.
ridiculous.
Let them get some of that. Let them instead of going home and sleeping in their bed at night because you're 79 miles away, and let's see how they like that, right?
yeah,
Exactly.
I object to that, and I would just keep driving. And then if someone tried to give me a fine for it later, I'd say, "See you in court." Um, yeah, that's the stuff. Like I'm way more libertarian about this stuff. Like you can't tell a man that's been working and away from home that he ran out of time an hour and a half from the house and he can't keep going. There used to be, so I like telling people this just because it was like a reasonable regulation. In Canada, there used to be an adjustment you could make on your logbook, and it was, I can't remember what the technical name for it was, but we used to just call it the Friday going home rule. So at the end of your cycle, whether it was in Canada, the cycles were a little different. They weren't like 60, 70, they were like 70, 120. It was like 1 week versus two and how many hours you could do. But anyhow, at the end of your cycle, you're on your way home. If it was the last day of your cycle and you were on your way home to finish up and have some days off, you were allowed to sleep only 4 hours in the bunk and then go home without taking an 8 or 10 hour daily reset. And then you had to take the 4 hours you didn't sleep and add it to the 72-hour reset if you'd done 120 or whatever your reset time was, let's say call it a 34, like in the US, your reset became 38. That's all they said. You can go home early. It's Friday. Sleep 4 hours, go home, make up for it at home. No problem. They took
Man,
that away. They took
I
that
got
away.
I got a funny story for you. So I got DOT'd a few months back, 4 or 5 months ago, and the officer asked me. He said, well, "What's this personal conveyance here?" I said, "That was for entertainment." And he says, "Entertainment?" I said, "Yeah, I was going home." He said, "That's not entertainment." I said, "Yeah, my wife's at home. I've been on the road 3 weeks. That's entertainment, brother." He laughed his ass off. He said, "Get out of here, man."
Yeah. Yeah, there needs to be something like that old Canadian rule about going home. Like it's not reasonable to expect somebody to sit and do a reset like when they're within like a day's drive of home. That's just retarded.
Yeah, there's been lots of times where my husband he'll run out of time like 45 minutes away and he's like, "Do I do it? Do I do it?" And I'm like, "Just park the truck, at the TA and I'll come get you."
Yeah.
Because I don't need them going through your logs and, violating you for stupidness.
When I worked in New Zealand, I used to haul logs for this company. Now, New Zealand doesn't have the huge distances we do, but they really do. They push their guys. It's 14 hours a day. You're working 14 hours. There's no like we're getting maximum utilization out of that truck in your time. So what they used to do for the company I worked for, this logging company, when I started working for them, I would do what they called afternoon relief. So guys would start at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they'd run out of time at 4 p.m. Let's say you started at 2 a.m. Your 14 hours is up at 4 p.m. They might be an hour from the yard. They might be 2 hours from the yard from getting home. I would hop in a pickup and meet them somewhere. They would take the pickup home because that's legal. You can drive the pickup truck back. And then I would get in their logging truck and then take the load the rest of the way to whatever mill, or if they were empty, I'd bring it back or go get it loaded for them or something. And they had this sort of system worked out. But like, if you're Knight Swift or JB Hunt, and you've got 10,000 trucks and guys all over the 48 continental US states and then Canada, someone runs out of time somewhere and they're like an hour from home, you know, unless they're going to like figure out like a whole network of relief drivers, that's just not possible or practical, right? So you should
Right?
just let guys go home. But
Yep.
anyway,
We spoke we spoke about it in a roundtable, and I have a feeling that is in the it wasn't so when we get to do those, they're super cool because you have the upper people of the White House administration there, not just like industry professionals, okay? And so this particular one, there was I, they asked us not to disclose who all was there. So, but he's a White House admin, he's in the White House administration. And I have a feeling that that is why Duffy has mentioned that they are looking at the hours of service um, stuff again, because I think they want to, they say that they want to get rid of red tape and regulations that are unnecessary or overburdening. And if they're serious, then they're much more responsive than the Biden administration, right? The Biden administration was sabotaged from the inside out. If this administration is serious, then that is the way that I feel like they're gonna go. They're truly interested in relaxing and getting rid of a lot of the restrictions, making the process better, enforcing transparency, just like they're enforcing supposedly the ELP stuff. So, it's just one of those where they're gonna talk the talk, but are they gonna walk the walk?
right. So this is our chance. If you have a complaint, make it legitimate, logical, write something nice down, bring the receipts, as the kids like to say, and
Yep.
get it in front of them. So yeah, thanks. Please send me that link. I'll signal boost it. I'll even put it in the show notes whenever I release this. Might be a couple weeks. Takes me a little while. I'm a one man show, and I'm also writing a book right now. But there's things here that you guys have said that are probably going to go in the book. So I think
Awesome.
this is the final book interview. After that, no more. Because
You've got enough meat and potatoes.
I do, but I wanted to get your guys' perspectives on stuff, and I didn't know that TNOOA had the sort of six. I don't want to say success necessarily, but access to regulators and the previous administration. I didn't know you guys had like gone so deep with that. That's really interesting to know, and I think it's good
Because
for
we
people.
bring the receipts.
Yeah, no, and I think it's good for our listeners to know, and like a lot of the people listen to my show are like our mutual folks on Twitter, and maybe they don't know anything about TNOA, maybe they only witness stupid online fights, and I think it's good to get people actually talking face to face, and then people listening while they're going down the road, so you get more nuance. Things aren't lost in textlation. It's not like an amped up online social media fight. It's actual legitimate intel, and I appreciate you guys coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Mr. Anderson, you got any final thoughts, sir?
Yeah, and this goes to the community and to the truckers, man. So rolling back of regulations, we know that they're interested in it. We've seen it across most of the sectors. I think that we need to get real loud going after Lee Zeldin on this death issue on trucks that are making our trucks undependable. That's costing us so much money a year to maintain these systems that do absolutely nothing besides cost money and yeah. So that's important to me. I've been calling out Lee Zeldin and say, when you're going to roll back the requirements for this DEF on our trucks, that's destroying our equipment. We used to, you get 1.5 million miles out of the truck. Now you're lucky to get 600,000 or 700,000 before needing a rebuild because of the back pressures from the DOC and the SCR, which is the DPS system, stopping up. It causes the motor retain heat, which destroys your motor. Diesel motors are very efficient. They're very dependable until you put stuff like that on them, and it's something I think needs to be looked at.
Right. Yeah. No. We have to sort of. It's funny you mention that because a lot of the there was some noise made earlier in the year and early when in the second Trump administration that they were going to take on the CARB stuff from California and they were going to relax EV mandates and subsidies for that stuff. And I mean, that's fine, but they need to look back and like unbutton some of the other really dumb things. But thus far, I've only seen trying to tackle stuff that's was sort of coming down the pipe, not stuff that's already in place. And some of the stuff, as you say, that's already in place that's been very costly. Like I say, the chapter I just submitted yesterday to my editor on the book is about the trucks themselves and about what you just said about the engines and cost and decreased reliability and the effect on the economy and on supply chains because trucks keep breaking down all over the place, downtime. I told stories about, there's a guy who runs a Freightliner dealer not far from me. When I was hauling propane, I took my truck there 3 times only for the emission control stuff. There was nothing else wrong with that truck for 2 years. And then the service manager at this Freightliner dealer is like, that's 75% of our business now. That's it. Like 3/4 of their business is fixing emission control stuff. Like that's a drag on the economy. That's money that trucking companies don't have to pay their drivers in raises or give them the benefits or, there's only a pot. And the more you take out of it, the less there is for everybody else, right? So
Yep, our truck is always having emissions problems due to the DEF stuff. And I think last year, I think it was like $15,000 um just, it happened twice, to have issues. And then one of the times it caused the turbo to go down, and it's horrendous. And I think that Lee has expressed interest in the DEF systems, Jayme, and I read somewhere speaking about it, and it's a matter of time, for him to get to it. But there's also been a bill introduced in Congress. It was the 118th, and I think I've been watching to see if anybody will reintroduce it to the 119th, which is this session. For the NOx sensors and the DEF systems, to eliminate them. So I will have to look up that bill for you, and maybe I'll sign up to track it, because it was there previously and it kind of like just stalled out. So if we can, get support for it, and get it somebody to, sponsor it, reintroduce it, then maybe that would be the step that he needs. To remove them from the trucks.
Right. Well, that's a good place to end it. How does everyone find y'all online?
Yeah, TNOOA, TNOOA. That's the National Owner Operators Association at www.com, or is that it, Blake's?
Yeah, www.TNOOA.com.
There you go. There you go. You can find me on X, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. I don't get on YouTube much. My X is Anderson J2273 under Texas Trucker. On LinkedIn, it's Jayme Anderson. Facebook's Jayme Anderson. Facebook is really just a kind of a family thing. Most of that I do is through LinkedIn and X. And I appreciate it, Gord. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Blake, do you want to be found? You don't want anybody to know your last name, so.
They can, I'm on X as let's see. Who am I on X as?
Boss Family.
Boss Family on X. And then I'm in the NOAA group on Facebook as Blake. And the Facebook group is NOOA, Owner Operators, No Authority, New Authority, is the Facebook group. And we're real active on there, and X.
All right, well, email me all that stuff, and I'll throw it in the show notes when I finally get this released, whenever that is. Hopefully soon. I got another backlog of 5 shows I got to get out the door. But thank you very much for coming on, and way the road.